Hello ladies and gents, I am Nother, and welcome back to From the Depths, Nother Neter, the community-based campaign. This is the first episode after defeating the Deepwater Guard, so we are now up to Tier 2. I still do have a large number of Tier 1 designs which I would like to showcase, and essentially I'm going to go through them in elimination. But before we do that, we do need a core of solid Tier 2 designs in order to, well, not lose. Fortunately, we do have a good number of Tier 2 designs from all of our fantastic builders here. And the designs I'm going to be utilising in this episode are essentially upgrading the Tier 1s to Tier 2, which we have already received. So let's have a quick look at some of those. So from Arboreus we have the Manta, and that is being upgraded into the Seahawk. The Seahawk is a design which was being used in Ashes of the Empire. It has been slightly modified. This time it has a much larger gun and essentially more redundancy because it is no longer having to work within the volume limit, though still it is actually within the volume limit, so it's fine really, which is quite awesome. It does now have a much larger nasty gun and a rather odd looking turret cap at the bottom there. Also my shield on side, which is awesome. Since we are facing the Onyx Watch, we do have a few designs which we could test against, though what I've found is that the Warden is a pretty good design just to showcase damage and such against. It doesn't have a particularly high amount of damage output, it's fairly easy to avoid its weapons, but it does take a nice amount of damage, so it is good to just see the stopping power of these sorts of designs. And it still does have crams, so it's a decent enough tester, I guess. So it fires fairly slow crams, but at a nice high, not crams, Hesh rounds at a fairly good angle. And these do smash into the crams from the top of the hull very, very readily, doing a really rather large amount of damage there against the Onyx Watch craft. The high angle of attack generally being a pretty useful thing, and just blasted through the side of the craft there, which was really rather nice. It probably will suffer though against shields, and that is going to be the case for a number of these initial designs. From Charadon, we're utilising the Waveblade, and we are going to be upgrading that to the SMABs, the Small Mobile Aquatic Battle Station. It is, well, it's an alloy and heavy armour. It's floating with this, and it has a load of direct feed guns there. This is very low, and it should just be there to pretty much, well, tank a lot of damage. Though, how much damage it's going to be able to tank is dubious, because the Onyx Watch do have a lot of cram cannons. But it's very low profile, will make it a very, very low priority target, I hope. And the enemy does seem to be having a little bit of difficulty aiming at it there. So let's wait for the next barrage of shots to come firing out from it and see the damage dealt on. Yeah. So it does a decent amount of damage, nothing amazingly strong, but then it is just a direct feed array gun at the top there. It's mainly the fact that it is a alloy and heavy armor brick, so going to be incredibly resilient to any form of damage which does strike it. From Richard Dastardly, we were utilising the Hammer Time, and this has had a slight variation. The munitions have been adjusted to be more powerful against the Onyx Watch. It has now a big APHE round rather than that heat thing. So it's got capped head, big load of HE, and then some solid warhead flak, and yeah, it's a pen depth fuse. It also does have smoke now, and what that smoke will mean is that it will try and protect itself when it's facing some of the, well, expert and godly designs such as the Alcazar, the Bulwark, and that smoke will hopefully protect the other shells from being shot at by that LAM system. But just done against the Warden, just to be able to see the sort of damage it does do when those shells hit its mark. Here comes a big shell, and it did smash right underneath the hull there. Penetrated in here, went through it, and then blasted out a hole right in the base of the Warden there. And see, you can see the smoke there with the telltale signs of what it did. Next shot again hits slightly low, but just smashes straight through and leaves a big cratering hole in the middle of the gun batteries there. Inbound another shell, and again smashing directly into the middle of the guns, breaking through here and blowing up a load of the components. Nothing too heavily damaged though, it seems to have missed some of the more vital components, but it is also being completely immune to the enemy attack. And you get this hitting at the right angle and it will one-shot designs. It's just that the Pendreps fuse when aiming at the front of the Wardens, because that's how the Warden's designed, it won't necessarily reach the vital components which are actually set at the rear of the Warden there. Against other craft though, while hitting broadside onto a target, it will do absolutely brutal amounts of damage. From Greyfell, we were utilising the Pocket Brawler, and this is going to be updated to the Citadel AA Cruiser. A dubious prospect, I must say, going for a AA Cruiser against the Onyx Watch. I would like to see how it goes, because at the same time, I'm not too sure that the Pocket Brawler is going to be doing particularly well. And this does have hollow point and squash heads on it, so it should do a good amount of damage, particularly if they are fairly spammy shots. It's also incredibly buoyant, and it's also got itself destroyed there by one of our own friendly torpedoes. So it's got a decent speed on it there, and the guns do line up and miss a little bit. Have you not got detection? You don't have detection. Oh, the detection just got shot off, that's why. Okay, I was going to despawn you because you'd run out of detection, but no, your detection has just been destroyed. That is a bit of a problem. It does mean that the detection is a touch vulnerable and there isn't any redundancy, unless the redundant systems were also destroyed. So it does have good detection, it's just its detection is on this central column here, it seems. So if that gets hit by anything, then it will have difficulty actually lining up its shots to do damage against its foes. Fairly small rounds. This won't be doing much against the large craft, but I do suspect it will be doing a nice little bit of damage and allow us to take out the smaller vehicles of the Onyx Watch, such as the wooden craft, because there will be a large number of those as well. It's not going to be all the huge castle ships all the time. Well, I hope it won't. If it is, we're going to have a really big problem. I do think the AA Cruiser will be good against the Age of Sail, the Black Powder Industries or whatever they are. So Razul hasn't actually finished the upgraded Tier 2 version of the Thunder, but I had received a Tier 2 previously, and that is in the form of the X1A Pretzel. So I'm going to be utilising this and seeing how this performs in the game. I think its LAM system is basically exactly the same as that on the Thunder, but its gun is actually got a little bit of protection, and it is a 250mm gauge thing there. Also looks like it has a little bit more shielding. So we'll send this against the Warden. Ah, no, that is a 4Q system, not a 0Q. But against Onyx Watch, Cram Cannons, 4Q is actually pretty good, because the cram shells do have a lot more health, so you don't have the same issue of running, well, of doing massive overkill as you do against live missiles or APS. So it has its place. It does seem to be, though, that a combination 0Q and 4Q provides the best defense against the Onyx Watch, or just generally enemies in general, because then yes, these 4Q does the large efficient amount of damage, and then the 0Q finishes everything off with its very rapid fire attacks. The EMP missiles are doing a nice job there, disabling and damaging the cram cannons, since cram cannons are actually vulnerable to EMP. The cram gauge and the pellets are damaged by EMP surges, so very nice there. And for Morton, we have the Battless, and that's going to be upgraded to the Blimp. It is a wooden hovering design, and it appears to have an absolutely huge derp gun on the bottom. What on earth is that thing? It is, it's got disruptors and squash. So it's like the idea, I presume, will be utilising a very, very big gun to try and, well, smash the shield and then smash the hull. Let's send against the Warden and see how it performs. It's quite slow, and yeah, if it takes a hit, it dies in glorious fashion. I need to remember to spawn it at a good distance. I thought it was a decent distance, but it's high, but it does need to be spawned at a good distance there to make sure that it doesn't get hit. Because if it does get hit, it seems that it will have a really bad time. It looks like it's trying to do forward-facing gun. It's actually utilising those jets on those pods to push itself back to get into that ideal position for firing that main gun. It has a nice array of torpedoes there as well. Unfortunately for it, it's actually still being very, very, very vulnerable to cram bombardment. It is 1400 meters away, and it is still getting those crams that land on it, having to avoid them utilising its shields more than anything else. And yeah, every now and then cram gets through. It says it's loaded, but it doesn't seem to want to aim. Maybe it's just because it has to get so far back. I have a bad feeling about this design. I'm not too sure it's going to work particularly well. It took another slight bit of damage, and it's still having difficulty firing that main gun. The torpedoes are doing nicely though. But there's this main gun. If that doesn't fire often enough, isn't going to do particularly well. We shall see though in battle. A lot of designs work very differently, I've noticed, in play to how they work in the designer. Because the designer is one-on-one, a lot of designs, they don't function very well. They work better as flanking attackers. And finally, we have my tier 2 submission, the ADF Arathusa. Its design here. It utilises a very similar concept to my previous one, utilising a load of Daddy blades for all of its propulsion and hovering. The array of components are in the middle here. A load of ACBs to make sure it's all kept nice and active. A load of, there's the ACBs. It has a strong LAM system in the middle, a lot of engine. LAMs at the top, which just are 0Q, and they do an amazing job at taking out all sorts of enemy cram. And then we have a belt blaster at the front. This fires up to about 140 rounds per minute, and it is just pure squash. And that's, so yeah, it doesn't do vast amounts of damage, but it is incredibly resilient, and it does enough damage to a wide range of targets. I've worked out it's probably around about 30 to 40 expert fleet power, which is really rather nice. So there we go. The lambs just instantly popped the Warden's shell, and it just makes it very, very, very immune to a lot of cram. Also, there's this awesome spiral of jet engines at the back there, just purely for aesthetic purposes. Good rate of fire, and a good amount of damage. They're already breaking a couple of the guns already, and it's only been a few moments. There's enough engine power to essentially keep itself, and fuel to keep the LAMs fully operational. That is at full draw for around about half an hour. So in terms of pure combat strength, this thing will last for an immensely long time. Yeah, that is enough of the showcase there. That's been going on for quite some time, for at least a quarter of an hour. And so what we want to do is have a look in game at our forces. I've also had an upgraded version of the Condor, so I'm going to scrap that and the 3 Aetioses. I think it's just a slight upgrade, but the way it spawns in, I actually do need to spawn them in new. Oh, it has a new vehicle, the Kia. Another design I did have an upgrade on was the Phoenix Interceptor, and that is actually just an automatic version, you see, version 6 updated, and that's just small changes, things like increasing the ammo and that in the force. So spawn in the new designs. One thing I did forget to do was build myself a staging post, so I'm just going to build myself an outpost, because I'm going to need one, hopefully, to take out that tile anyway. Right, they're actually repairing pretty well here. A load of the T2s are finishing up. The division's kind of huge at the moment, because I haven't quite figured out what I want them to be, well, set up as. Also, despite all that huge amount of resources, I still actually don't have enough to complete the forces. Yikes, so the Timmy and the Crumble will be scrapped again. The Outlet 3 as a force is completed. Oh, excellent, we have a flute! That is a player design, so we are coming in already, which is excellent. Let's declare war with our allies. And Onyx Watch, we are now at war with you. Let's just tilt this force around and get ready to take on this force here. I'm just going to close the window because of that annoying dog. And let's go take out a 150 tile with tier 1 ships. This is not going to go well. We are going to get absolutely rolled in this fight. Let's push the battle size up a little bit more. So let's just try and get... I really want the Gloom in, actually. So the Beschutz and Shield Starter Raft are going to be coming afterwards. Beschutz over there. Shield Starter Raft. Right, I'll spawn over here, and let's begin this battle. The first battle against the Onyx Watch. Look at that pitiful size. We're outnumbered 10 blocks to 1. Thankfully the Alcazar is not in yet. That at least gives us a little bit of a fighting chance, but... Is that a Jawmonger? Oh, blooming heck, it is, isn't it? Oh, it's a power staff. That looks really similar to the Jawmonger. Right, well, let's hope to see how the battle performs. Yeah, not too sure how to view these battles. Well, we'll play it by ear and see how it goes. Start with the enemy line up all their cram shells and just bombard us. Well, mostly the planes with huge numbers of crams, but because the planes are going quite quickly, all those crams do go pretty wild. First ray there of missiles, just landing in and doing almost no damage whatsoever because, well, the Onyx Watch are heavy armor bricks. Well, bricks. They have, well, actually, they do have quite a bit of heavy armor, but they are mostly steel and wood. Though there's going to be a lot of the fragmentation spam cannons, which are going to be doing a huge amount of the damage. Just smashing down onto the upper decks, taking out the wood components and also the barrels, because the barrels are still relatively weak on these designs compared to the rest of the craft. The Beschutz are moving in. It seems to have taken a few nasty hits, but is still fighting on regardless. The Gloom, I decided to retreat because it must have taken a hit fairly early on. That seems to have happened a fair amount. It's annoying because the Gloom would be perfect in these situations for dealing with the damaged craft. I'm just going in, trying to retreat a few of the designs, but I unfortunately fail. And similarly here, they're taking a few hits, but once they don't take damage for a few seconds, I can then retreat them. This just now leaves us down to a couple of the flyers, the Circle of Death and the Magic Carpet there. Magic Carpet seems to be doing the most of the damage, but it is still taking a long time. And what I decide is actually, this is taking a really long time. I've been speeding the game up and done a few jump cuts already, though I've only seen a couple here, but I have actually done sections within the battle as well, just because of how long it was taking. And also, the enemy Alcazar hasn't actually spawned in, so yeah. Aside then, you know, while it's changing into the night and not being able to see much, I'm going to spawn in and actually spawn nukes directly on the enemy. So just create a new vehicle next to it, build a nuke, and then drop it right on the turret there. And do again here, blowing it up. And that's absolutely fantastic because it means I can just run straight in through those dirt grape holes and capture it straight away. And I'd starting that on the Alcazar as well once it spawns in, but its high damage destroys our flyers quite quickly. Well, we lost that battle, but it was alright. So yes, although we did lose things, we did actually manage to capture the Bastion in a much more interesting way by dropping nukes on it, which I built in combat. So yeah, well, I did want to try. It seems a little less cheaty than, you know, just killing it with everything else, but still. Well, what we can do though is we can scrap all these forces. So the Basholts did decently well. The Gloom, unfortunately, just didn't. I thought I'd do well. The Shield of Starcraft, well, that lasted long enough for me to capture the Bastion. Beyond that, what else we have? The Circle of Death, that actually survived very well, along with the Magic Carpet. The pair of them I thought actually might have had a good chance, but then the Alcazar turned up, and then everything went to hell, because the Alcazar is a really deadly expert design. It's got huge repair capabilities, good LAM systems, actually reasonable APS weaponry. And yeah, it's just made a right mockery of everything of ours. The next Tier 1 force we have is this one here, with Condor, the Responder, the Marksman, the Blood Iron, and the Imp. Let's go send this against the 4th Exploration Team, the remnants of that force there. And I also want to see what the Kia does, because I actually don't remember what that does. Ah! This is a Cywat's gunship. So it's got a big APS long length, and I presume this orbits and bombards its target from afar. Very nice indeed. And still very cheap, because the whole lot of that is still under the 15k, it's still within Tier 1. Well, the battle begins, the enemies spawn in, and the initial barrages come off from both sides. A large number of cram coming towards our vehicles here, and those little small LAM systems doing decently well. Despite only being a couple of Q, they do a good amount against those cram shells, actually destroying a fair few. Unfortunately, shooting a little bit far and destroying ones which aren't needed to be destroyed, so maybe that's going to be a bit of an issue when it needs to actually have enough power to take out the ones which are aimed directly at it, rather than ones nearby. The rest of the vehicles are also doing quite well. A few disabled things here, but the enemy do have shields, and those shields are proving to be a real pain for our craft. We only have the Tier 1s, and yeah, we don't have the shield busting because the Deepwater Guard do not really have shields. The Kia, though, is doing a nice orbiting procedure there, going round and round and round, and blowing up a good number of targets there. However, it is fairly weak to hits, and if it does take a strike, it detonates massively, and yeah, that's all which remains of it there. But I decided to go in and do the same sort of tactic as I did in the previous battle, and that is spawn nukes in directly onto the Alcazar here, and just blow up massive cratering holes in it, essentially trying to uncover the AI, which is in heavy armor bricks right deep within. I think it's at the front, the rear, and in the middle. I think it actually has 3 AI. Part of this because look at that stupid amount of repair tentacles. This thing will keep entire fleets alive. So I'm using every exploit to my knowledge, including the spam rapid fire minigun grenade launcher, to just break my way through the craft and capture it as soon as possible. Then spawning in more nukes to other designs, again to find the AIs to capture them as quickly as possible. This is the Warrior. And then also just using nukes to actually destroy vehicles, destroying as many blocks as possible, such as the APS at the rear there, making it 2 damage and making it despawn itself over time, just because our Air Force was basically not powerful enough to perform the final killing blows on these castle ships. Well, technically we did win, however, I don't want to fight like that again. That just took forever. I really do mean forever. I was recording for about an hour on that fight. I just basically despawned a load of stuff and despawned nukes everywhere because, well, nukes work. Thankfully, we did manage to capture some things utilising that nuke spawning shenanigans, so there is that much. Just scrap all these ones because they did decently well. But actually, the Condor survived. I'll keep that around because it did eventually allow me to win the battle, though at an annoyingly long cost. I managed to capture an Alcazar, which is worth 181,000 materials at 77%, and a Warrior, which is worth 73,000 materials, so those number of nukes I spawned in were completely irrelevant. So that's really nice to see. Right then, it's time then to see the T2 fight. So the Arethusa, we'll go over here. What do we find? Find Constellation, which is decent. We are facing Essen. There's the Flute. That is a player designed by Alwana. I will showcase that after this battle. I'm facing a couple of Baileys as well. The Blimp's going to sit right at the back, as is the Seahog. Both of those are going to be long-range bombardment. Up the battle size a little bit more. So it looks like only one design of each of ours is not coming in. Now this battle is a far cry from the previous two, where we only had Tier 1 designs at our disposal. Here we have the Tier 2 fleet, and straight away we have a good bombardment of APS rounds coming in from our forces. A barrage of Hesh rounds, I believe a lot of these coming from the Arethusa, destroys the two Baileys. It passes through one, and then the shells which go through the cratering hole in the first one go through and actually hit the second one, detonating both internally. That leaves us only with a few other ships there to face. And we are having fragmentation rounds coming from the AA cruiser, and just general barrages of Hesh and explosive rounds coming from all out of the craft there. I haven't spotted any of the giant pen depth fuse rounds from the Hammer Time as of yet, but what I am noticing is that the Flute's land systems are actually really rather nice. I didn't even realise it had land systems at this point. I thought it was just, a small little thing there. I eventually do find one of which does these the Hammer Times 30 great big rounds, but it actually misses its target, which is a bit of a shame. They don't come out very often, and yeah. Just observing the Flute there, it is made of wood, so even those small fragmentation rounds are doing an amazing job at just breaking through the hull. Going back to the Constellation, it is a massive, massive ship. No, this isn't the Constellation, is it? No, it's got the tram guns. But it is being bombarded by the Seahog there. You can see the nice high angle coming straight down onto the top of the deck, smashing huge holes using those very big cratering Hesh rounds. This is the bombardment from the Constellation, and it is really, really ineffectual. And this is just it being hammered from all of our craft. You can see the telltale smoke signals from the Hammer Time as one of the APHE rounds just smashed into the rear section of the ship there. It's also taking a lot of small fragmentation hits, but those missiles were actually destroyed by our own weapons, so it is a little bit of a problem. Just jumping around, making sure everything is kept up, fully repaired, because the enemy aren't hitting this that often, but a lot of our vehicles, if they do take damage, can actually be fairly critical. So a small amount of damage can often mean that it's actually a detection system which has been disabled. And poor detection means that we just won't hit the target. And we do need to be able to strike those targets in order to destroy them. But they are disintegrating nevertheless, a lot quicker than the T1 fights as well. Wow, that battle went really rather well, I must say. Yeah, we've got absolutely loads of resources now. We've got 250,000. I'm just going to spawn in another outpost. Still need to actually work on my actual moving outpost, forward base. It is something I will be working on. I did mean to do it for this episode, but I got delayed. It's good though. We'll be able to actually upgrade a lot of our forces and send in a ton more of the T1 designs. Oh, what I will do though is I'll save the game and just show off the flute in the designer. So the flute is a sailing ship for the Onyx Watch by Alwana. And we saw in the battle, it has quite a nice array of rigging, some very nice aesthetic touches, and it does have land systems, which for its cost, for its fleet power is actually really quite potent. However, it also doesn't have exactly the most powerful in the ways of offense. I think it does have railguns, but that is, I think, purely to make these guns actually accurate without being derp guns and sticking out really far. It makes them look like actual cannon. And the whole thing actually just makes this look like a fairly realistic actual sailboat. There's very large sails and fairly low in the water, which some of the actual sailboats were. It's even got a little life raft thing in the middle, which actually houses the detection, which is made to look like various bumpers and things on there. It's got very little simple cannons there, and a fairly okay LAM system, but it isn't very strong. It is only made of wood, and that LAM system is pretty much all which is keeping it alive. And even though it's pretty much only useful for taking out missiles. You can take out a couple of these crams, but honestly it's actually more the motion which is keeping it safe from the Warden's crams here. And if those crams do get in touch with the craft, big explosions happen, breaking it apart fairly easily. And I do really like the aesthetics. Some very nice rigging. So there, can climb all the way up here to the various positions on poles, and then actual lines going down from right the way to the front craft all the way up to the various positions here, and then flags on top of each mast there as well. Excellent, the crams were going straight through the gap in the middle. Brilliant. It's a nice little design, and will do fairly well, I think, as an offensive enemy force. So I go back to the T1 design. It's going to spawn in another 3 to go in and basically commit suicide in glorious combat. From Achtung, we have the Amazon class River Monitor. This is a very, very, very tanky design. We have here a cram cannon and APS gun at the top there, and then at the front it is just huge lumps of metal and material with dirty blades internal there. Very low in the water, and this is incredibly tanky. I'll just send this against the Warden just to see just how much damage it can actually take. The German gun. This is quite a powerful design, has some decent APS weaponry on it. You can just see how tanky this is. Only a tier 1, and it's going decently well against its enemy design here. And this is actually rammer, so it will just go rolling towards its target, using its shields and very large frontal armor there to get right in where it will ram, and then just bombard the enemy from within with a pair of large cannons there. It's just tanking all these hits, taking cram after cram after cram hit, and it will actually eventually just move in and then bombard its enemy at point blank range. It's taken most of the damage now already, but this is a tier 1 fighting a ridiculously tough designer. I think it will eventually, yeah, it is actually slowing up now. It's still going, but yeah. It's a very tough design. I probably just took it against something far too powerful. But it'll be nice to see how it goes in by itself anyway. Then from Aeon, we have the Minor Detonator. There's an interesting design here. To say, really not sure what this is. Is it a ejector nuke or something? Ah, no, the guns do all rotate. Right, that was a little bit confusing there. That's midship guns. I have tried a concept like this before. It was difficult to do, but it is quite interesting because it allows you to have three very powerful, or in this case three, a very powerful weapon which can fire in all directions, while that also allowing the profile of the craft to be fairly small. This is very fast, which means that against the Onyx Watch, this is going to be incredibly difficult for the enemy to actually shoot at it. Of course, it is having a little bit of difficulty due to its fairly erratic movement, lining those guns up for a shot on its own right. But even though it was fairly difficult, it did manage to land a shot against the Warden there. But it did just crash into the water. Ah, it has a little bit low on power. Oh, it's a battery powered thing. Okay, so it does need to ensure it gets full battery charge. That will be fine in the campaign. Yeah, so it might have a little bit of difficulty with its power, but then again, all these tier 1 designs are not. I'm not expecting them to last that long. They're just going in for essentially showcase of them being defeated. Next up, we do have the Evening Shrimp, and this one has now been fixed, so it does have an engine and AI and such. Unlike the one where I tried it previously. So now trying this against the Warden. And it just took the first hit took out the rear propellers, so yeah, that isn't going to do this particularly well. And so the fact that it doesn't have has an engine, it doesn't have one again because it just got shot out. Oh dear. So his weapon in his system is still doing well, and the enemy is propelling it along with cram barrages, so yeah. Doing decently well actually, despite that. Just getting hit constantly every single time the Warden is firing it. This is getting hit by cram shells. Another nice little design to be, well, sent to the slaughter, I think. Then from Dammit, we have the Sea Potat, which is a potato. It is the most glorious potato, and it has detection systems now. It didn't have detection systems before, but it is a potato. Well, why does it need to be anything else? This is a submission from the Cute Boat tournament, in fact. And it has a big cram cannon on board, which, despite being only a couple of meters in barrel length, just did a penetration depth fuse and just smashed right into the Warden there. It got shot at, but it survived, and then it also landed its hit. Just going to show that, well, you don't need very long barrels at all with cram. Just a single couple of meters barrel will do sufficiently. However, if you do get hit yourself, then you will have a lot of problems. Because, well, it is only 10k in cost and has very minimal armor, and its cram cannon is fairly explosive. Alright, let's head back into the campaign. Right, let's get all this repaired up and then go and attack the 14th Army. Excellent. It does seem now a lot of our forces do have repair tentacles, or at least one repair tentacle on them. And that's allowing these repairs to be effected very quickly, despite not actually having much of a dedicated building and repair force here in terms of the Logidarts. I definitely have sufficient, and wow, Logidarts are doing well. Come on, Evening Shrimp, finish up your repairs. Good, you're ready to go. We have the Brunhild Mark II back, then the Evening Shrimp, then loads of these little drone flyer things. So I am sitting on the monitor, so I just want to go straight in for all of this kill. There's going to be a lot of cram coming in our direction though. And yes, this is another one of the tier 1 fight, so the damage output from our forces is remarkably low. And so a lot of this fight is going to be incredibly sped up. It does have the Brunhild, which is a T2. I did kind of forget that when I was spawning it. I know it is, but because it was around with the tier 1 the Deep Water Guard for so long, I just kind of put it in here. I should have really used the Brunhild Mark 1. Still, there we go. A lot of the designs, though, are going in quite well, and thankfully the Onyx Watch are deciding to attack all of our air force, predominantly Brunhild there, trying to shoot it, which is keeping all of our shipping very, very safe, because, well, the Krams have almost no chance of trying to hit the Brunhild. The Brunhild is decently high height there, and does also have land systems which protects it against, well, land bombardment. As seen there, it's just shot a few of those Krams down, even though they weren't actually directly aiming towards it. At this point, though, it does go into a night battle, and this night is, well, as you can see, it is very dark. It does look fairly pretty, but I'm going to be adjusting this a little bit more because it's a long time for the night battle, and it does get very, very dark. So I'm just going to adjust it more to a little bit more default settings, but try and keep the dawn and dusk that slightly extended. So this sort of lighting, which does show nice highlights of the gun flashes and all that, is a lot more visible and more readily without it being glowing brightness. But it does take a little while to make sure that is all okay. And it is also, you don't really notice until it's actually more just playback how dark it actually gets, because when I'm playing a game, I don't notice so much. One thing which does brighten up though is nukes. So I'm deciding to spawn more nukes on the targets because, yeah, the damage output of this force is so low that I've got to supplement the damage somehow, because at this point the battle has been going on for a very, very long time. Actually, this playback is going up to about 400% speed for almost this entire battle, and yeah, this battle is taking a very long time, even at that massively accelerated timescale there. Because there's designs like this, they have a lot of shielding. The designs are useless, they have no guns there, but they have a lot of shields and a lot of armour, and so what little damage we have is just not breaking through and just pinging off. A perfect example though is just how low our damage is this fortress. The fortress also spawned in during this battle, and yeah, this is at 600% speed, and it's taking just shy of a minute to do. This actually took over 5 minutes to destroy a stationary unshielded target with our forces here. Admittedly, it is only the Air Force part, but still, 5 minutes to destroy a stationary design. The damage on this force is very low. I'm going to supplement it with more T1s, and then we'll just go from there and let them run their course. Well, that took a truly stupid length of time to destroy that little bit there. But that is going to be it for this episode. But, yeah, these T1s are doing decently well, but they take so long to kill something. I'm essentially just going to slam all the T1s in here. I kind of forgot that the Brunhild was a T2. So I'm going to take that out and then just have a huge fleet of T1s, and then just going to go and try and kill everything. How well that will work, I'm not sure, but it should be interesting nevertheless. Hopefully, though, it won't take as long. But one thing which I did notice with these very, very long battles in this episode is the day-night cycle is still a little bit off. It's a bit quick. And so I'm going to adjust that again for next episode. Also, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to be doing the editing in this episode, so I'll do what I can, but if you can, able to leave comments or recommendations, because this recording was over 2 hours. That's over twice as long as normal, just because of the duration of some of the battles in this episode. Hopefully, though, it's been interesting, and I will see you again soon. So thank you very much for watching this episode of From the Depths Nother Neter with myself and a Diffin. If you did enjoy the episode, please leave a like and or comment below, as this is always great to hear from you lot. Also, be sure to check out the rest of my channel for more From the Depths videos and other games, and swing by the Discord channel for more direct, interactive chatting and discussion in a bit more detail regarding the designs which are being utilised in play. Otherwise, that's it for me for now, and I shall see you next time. But until then, I'm out. Goodbye!